9.6 Control. From President to Supervisor, controlling is the function that is performed utmost carefully by every manager. Control refers to the task of ensuring that activities are producing the preset targets or goals. Controlling is aimed at monitoring the outcome of activities, reviewing feedback information about this outcome, and if necessary takes corrective action. In the words of Anthony, control is the process by which managers assure that resources are obtained and used effectively and efficiently in the accomplishment of the organizational objectives. According to Haynes and Massey, control is any process that guides activity towards some predetermined goal. Hicks and Gullett contend that controlling is the process by which management sees if what did happen was what was supposed to happen. If not, necessary adjustments are made. Kuntz and O'Donnell contend that managerial control implies the measurement of accomplishment against the standard, and the correction of deviations to assure attainment of objectives according to plans. Control function is closely connected to planning. In fact, control is an effective counterpart to planning. Planning and control are so entwined that it becomes almost impossible to determine where one leaves off and the other begin. Planning without corresponding controls are apt to hollow hopes. The control process. A control system follows the following sequence. Establishment of standards. The first step in control process is the establishment of standards or objectives or targets against which the actual performance is measured. Fred Lufthansa contends that standards are used to control the objectives are used to control goals, and goals are used to control purpose. Before setting standards, managers take necessary steps, such as studying the work characteristics, setting the acceptable levels of goal performance, etc. Further, the manager should see that standards are not rigid, rather they are rationally flexible. Fundamentals of Economics and Management 147. Measurement of actual performance. Another crucial step in controlling is the measurement of actual performance of employers. The manager has to measure the work against which appropriate standards are set. Measurement of performance is particularly difficult for less technical tasks. Comparing the actual performance with standards, the comparison may reveal some deviations from the standards established. In very rare occasions only actual performance matches perfectly with the standards. While comparing the actual performance with the standards, the manager should see that the deviation does not go beyond an acceptable range, i.e. taking corrective action if the actual result is far from the desired result. Whether the deviation is positive or negative, corrective action is called for. If there is a negative deviation, an inquiry should be made as to why actual results were not meeting the standards. If there is positive deviation, it does not mean that the performance is very good. The positive deviation may be due to substandard being fixed. This too calls for corrective action. Standards should be revised. The manager has to assess the causes of deviation and take necessary rectification measures. Corrective action includes resetting the standards, reallocation of duties to employees, changing the organization structure, providing motivation to employees, training and selecting the employees, controlling responsibilities. What to control? In any organization or work unit, managers have to decide in advance the area or points of activity which need to be controlled. DHESE are to be selected based on their importance in relation to the whole activity and desired results. This leads us to examine two concepts: critical point control and control of exception. A critical point control. In a simple operating system, all aspects of the activity can be watched and controlled in a closed manner. But as a system becomes more complex, it may not be possible or necessary or economical to control each and every aspect of the activities. In such cases, controls have to be selective. A few key areas or aspects of the activity and their performance have to be identified, and control attention has to be focused on them. The underlying assumption is that the selected key areas or aspects are critical to the survival and success of the system in the sense of being limiting or bottleneck factors, and that by paying attention to them it is possible to ensure planned performance of the whole operation. The selected key areas for control are variously called key result areas, key success factors, Critical points or strategic points. In the area of inventory control, ABC analysis is an example of critical point control. Be controlled by exception, also known as management by exception. The principle is widely practiced by managers in organizations. It means that managers at each level should pay attention to only exceptional and significant deviations from planned results. Only exceptional instances of offline functioning of the system should deserve managerial attention and remedial action. Performance, which is largely within the permissible standards in spite of the presence of minor deviations or disorders, need not be referred to managerial attention. The idea behind the principle of control by exception is that no news is good news. If there is nothing to report, the presumption is that the system is functioning all right. Management process. 148 Fundamentals of Economics and Management. Kinds of control. 3 kinds of control systems are used by modern organizations, namely I. Historical or feedback control, II. Concurrent control, and III. Predictive or feed-forward control. I. Feedback control. In all physical and biological systems, some message is transmitted in the form of mechanical transfer of energy, a chemical reaction, or any other means which is known as cybernetics. In social systems also, some information is sent back to exercise control. Any good managerial system controls itself by information feedback, which discloses errors in accomplishing goals and initiates corrective action. Feedback is the process of adjusting future actions based upon information about past performance. Though feedback is after the fact, it is vital to the control process. Sometimes, input variables are measurable, e.g., the values an employee brings to the job, or are not detected at the feed-forward control point. Feedback is necessary in any continuous activity as it enables to take corrective action, which is essential for the accomplishment of goals of the system. The concept of feedback is important to the development of an effective control in any organization. This is also known as post-control, which refers to gather information about completed activities, to evaluate information, and to take corrective actions to improve similar activity in future. In other words, it permits the manager to use information on past performance to bring future performance in line with planned objectives and standards. Post-control helps in testing validity and appropriateness of standards. To make post-control more meaningful and effective, analysis of post-performance is required to be made as quickly as possible, and control reports should have been submitted to the manager without loss of time. II. Concurrent control. It is known as real-time or steering control. It is concerned with the adjustment of performance before any major damage is done. For instance, the navigator of a ship adjusts its movements continuously, or the driver of a car adjusts its steering continuously depending upon the direction of destination, obstacles, and other factors. In a factory, control chart is an example of concurrent control. Concurrent control occurs while an activity is still taking place. II. Feed-forward control. Feed-forward control involves evaluation of inputs. Feed-forward follows the simple principle that an organization is not stronger than its weakest link. For instance, if a machine is not functioning properly, the operator will look for certain critical components to see whether they are working well or not. The same logic applies to feed-forward control. It is essential to determine and monitor the critical inputs into any operating system. Preventive maintenance program is an important example of feed-forward control. It is employed to prevent the breakdown in machinery. Another example of feed-forward control is formulation of policies to prevent critical problem from occurring. For instance, a policy on absenteeism may be communicated to new employees to help and prevent potential problems created by absenteeism. Prerequisites of an effective control system. Any control system should meet certain requirements in order to be effective, which are indicated below. 1. There should be a match between the type of function and the system of control at all levels of the organization. 2. The control system should be sensitive enough to point out deviations from plans immediately so that corrective action can be initiated with little loss of time and before any damage is caused. 3. The control system should be flexible and forward-looking, just like the planning system, to enable the organization and its subsystems to adapt and adjust their goals and the means of reaching them in turn with the change in the environment, i.e., to maintain the sort of dynamic equilibrium. Fundamentals of Economics and Management 149. For the control system should focus on strategic and key activity areas or points which are critical to overall performance. 5. The control system should enable managers to utilize their time and talent most effectively by concentrating on major or exceptional deviations from plans. 6. The control system should be formal and objective as far as possible, in fairness to those whose performance is monitored, regulated and evaluated. To some extent, quantification of performance standards meets this requirement. 7. The control system should be consistent with the organizational structure. It should be built into the horizontal activity relationships and vertical authority relationships. In a sense, the organizational structure is a control system, designed to achieve certain predetermined goals effectively. 8. Controls are nothing more than means to certain ends. They are not ends in themselves. They should constantly focus on goals to be achieved, on values to be preserved and on interests to be promoted. 9. The control system should be economically to operate. Economy need not, however, be exercised at the cost of effectiveness. Sometimes, a simple inexpensive control system may match with expensive, highly sophisticated one in terms of effectiveness. 10. The control system should give due allowance to factors or variables which cannot be controlled, but which affect the performance of people. 11. The control system should be designed to measure and evaluate the diverse dimensions of performance of individuals and activity areas, giving appropriate weightage to all the relevant variables having a bearing on performance. Qualitative variables or factors deserve to be taken into consideration while evaluating performance. 12. The means adopted to achieve goals should also be kept under watch by the control system, because both means and ends are important. 13. Finally, the control system should be understandable to those whose performance is sought to be regulated. The requirements of control should be communicated in a simple and straightforward manner to those who are to abide by the system. Principles of control. The following principles of control summaries the substantive parts of the above discussion on the controlling function. 1. Principles of assurance of objective. The task of control is to ensure that plans succeed by detecting deviations from plans and furnishing a basis for taking action to correct potential or actual deviations. 2. Principle of future directed controls. The more a control system is based on feed-forward rather than simple feedback of information, the more managers have the opportunity to perceive undesirable deviations from plans before they occur and to take action in time to prevent them. Control, like planning, should ideally be forward-looking, because of time lags in the system of information feedback. Hence control should be directed towards the future by devising proper information, forecasting, early warning and rapid response mechanisms. 3. Principle of control responsibility. The primary responsibility for the exercise of control rests in the manager charged with performance of the particular plans involved. There is unity of planning and control in each managerial position. 4. Principle of efficiency of controls. Control techniques and approaches are efficient if they detect and illuminate the nature and causes of deviations from plans with a minimum of costs or other unsought consequences. The results of control should be worth their costs both in monetary management process. 150 Fundamentals of Economics and Management and human terms. The adverse human consequences of control have especially to be guarded against. 5. Principle of direct control. Higher the quality of every manager in a managerial system, they would ensure a high quality of managerial decision-making and action behavior. 6. Principle of reflection of plans. The more the plans are clear, complete and integrated, and the more the controls are designed to reflect such plans, the more effectively controls will serve the needs of managers. Clear, complete and integrated plans facilitate better control. 7. Principle of organizational suitability. The more that an organizational structure is clear, complete, and integrated, and the more that controls are designed to reflect the place in the organization structure where responsibility for action lies, the more they will facilitate correction of deviations from plans. Responsibility for execution of plans and for correction of deviations must be pinpointed clearly in the organizational structure. 8. Principle of individuality of controls. The more that control techniques and information are understandable to individual managers who must utilize them for results, the more they will be actually used and the more they will result in effective control. Control techniques should be tailored to the personality and orientations of managers. At least they should be intelligible to them and within their power of understanding. 9. Principle of standards. Effective controls require objective, accurate and suitable standards. Measurement of performance by reference to standards should be verifiable, specific and simple. Standards should earn the respect of people who have to abide by them. 10. Principle of critical point control. Effective control requires attention to those factors critical to appraising performance against an individual plan. Manager should concentrate on salient features of performance in selective areas, picked up as of strategic importance. 11. Principle of exception. The more managers concentrate control efforts on exceptions, the more efficient will be the results of their control. This principle suggests that managers should concentrate on significant deviations, both positive and negative, from plans. 12. Principle of flexibility of controls. If controls are to remain effective, despite failure or unforeseen changes of plans, flexibility is required in their design. Since plans have to be flexible to order to be effective, control has also to be flexible. 13. Principle of action. Control is justified only if indicated or experienced deviations from plans are corrected through appropriate planning, organizing, staffing and leading. The principle affirms the essential unity of management. Techniques of control. Managers use different methods and systems to exercise control of different levels. Now, we will touch upon some of the tools and mechanisms devised by managers and others over the years to control specific aspects of activity and performance of an enterprise or work units. Budgets are formal quantitative statements of the resources allocated for the execution of activities over a given period of time, and include information about projected income, expenditure and profits. 1. Budgetary control. Budgets are useful as tools of control to the extent that they permit monitoring, measurement, evaluation, regulation and correction of enterprise activity along desired predetermined directions. The essential elements of budgetary control are outlined as follows. Translation of enterprise goals into sub-goals of the various operating units which are further operationalized as standards of performance, and targets of achievement sales, market share, production, profit etc. over a short period of time, say, 6 months or 1 year. Fundamentals of Economics and Management 151. Determination of the volume of resources required to achieve the operational goals, funds, material, labor, equipment, time and so forth. Accord of general sanction for the acquisition and allocation of budgetary resources to various activity units over the budgetary period. The devolution of necessary authority and fixing of accountability for the planned performance, standards and targets, among the various executive positions. The establishment of appropriate system for monitoring, measuring and evaluating the pace and quality of operations on a continuous basis. This includes initiation of required measures to ensure that actual performance is in conformity with budgeted performance. Deviations and variances are analyzed and remedial measures are taken to set them right. 2. Financial statements. The annual financial statements of enterprises, trading and profit and loss account and balance sheet are powerful tools of control. They epitomize the financial dimension of enterprise operations at periodic intervals of time. The profit and loss during a specified period, while the balance sheet is a position statement of the financial status of the enterprise at the end of the specified period. Managers could analyze the financial statements of the previous period. Historical statements to know the dynamics of revenue generation and incidence of expenditure, has also the trends of changes in liabilities, assets and net worth of the enterprise. Projected financial statements for the next year may also be prepared on the basis of forecasts and plans of the enterprise, and these could also be used to monitor and regulate financial events and transactions which take place in the enterprise. 3. Break-even analysis, also called cost-volume profit analysis. Break-even analysis is a tool of control to size up the behavior of costs, revenues and profit various levels of activity. It enables management to understand the amount of profit that can be expected at various volumes of operations, the appropriate volume of operations needed to obtain the target level of profit, and the impact of changes in product prices and costs on the volume of operations and profitability. Simple break-even graphs can be prepared on a rough basis by using the available or projected data of fixed and variable costs and sales volumes of the enterprise to arrive at the break-even point, the point at which the total revenue is equal to total cost. It is a no profit no loss point. More complex break-even analysis can be undertaken with the help of computers to project how small changes in unit prices, target profits and levels of activity influence one another. Break-even analysis is adopted as a tool of profit planning. It is thus the technique of both planning and control. 4. Management Information System MIS can helpful to managers in carrying out the planning, controlling and operational functions by gathering, storing and converting data into useful information. MIS incorporates historical, current and projected information, quantitative or non-quantitative. It provides information in summary or detailed form as needed by managers. It provides information for all types of decision issues, strategic, administrative and operational. It enables managers to improve the quality and timeliness of their decisions in particular and to systematize even their day functioning in general. It adds to the alertness, awareness and intelligence of managers by supplying information in the form of progress and review reports on ongoing activity. Another role of MIS is to provide only that much information as called for by manager specifically for purposes of decision-making. This means that the question of information overload does not arise, and that only optimum information is provided. The information is also updated on a continuous basis so as to make it more relevant. MIS avoids furnishing of overlapping information as it will create confusion in the minds of managers. There is thus the desired degree of focus and selectivity in the information content. Management process. 152 Fundamentals of Economics and Management. 5. Management audit. The term management audit is defined as a systematic evaluation of the functioning, performance and effectiveness of management of an organization. It is thus an independent appraisal of an organization's management by an outside firm. Depending on the preferences and perspectives of top management, audit may cover all or some major facts of functioning of the organization and its management. A few major areas which could be exposed to the searchlights of management audit are listed as follows. 1. Formulation of organizational objectives, strategies, policies and programs of action and the manner in which they are pursued, as also the extent of success achieved. 2. Design and operation of organizational structures of roles, activities and relationships. 3. The manner and efficiency with which resources and assets are mobilized, developed, allocated, utilized and safeguarded, including the human resources, for design and functioning of various systems and operations within the organization. 5. The manner in which the management team anticipates and sizes up external environmental elements and designs appropriate adaptive strategies to cope with them. 6. The internal organizational climate. To what extent it is conducive for cooperation, harmony, creativity, productivity and satisfaction. 7. The quality of managerial decisions, their soundness, timeliness and effectiveness.